Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. No, more energy. Good afternoon. Can you all stand up once and sit down? Need some energy. Okay. Okay. Now sit down. You need energy, because what happens is there's something called half-life. How many of you know what is half-life? You know half-life? What happens? There is energy decay, right? It happens from the start of the day to now. You've been fed lot of stuff, right? I'm not going to quiz you on what you learned from all the previous sessions. Should I? Okay. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to talk about something which is an intersection of what I call as the area of software engineering. Software engineering, how many of you have heard what it means? None of you? Okay. How many of you have heard the word AI? Please raise hands. If you don't raise, that means you're not learning AI. Sad part is that the first one is what is basically required for you to build an AI system, which is building software. And what are the jobs in the industry? 100% of jobs are software jobs. But you don't know what software engineering is. Right? Sad, isn't it? Because you've all been fed all the bull about AI. AI is great. AI is going to replace humanity. All that crazy stuff about AI, ML, DL, then AGI, ASI, agentic AI, name it and all. You all go and do stories and read courses and all. But what happens is, let me tell you what I want to start off with this slide. If you don't do the first thing, which is software engineering, well, here is what happens. You gave all your life to AI. But let me tell you what happened in a legal case. There was a scenario where a judge got very interesting write-up from the prosecutor saying that these are the legal precedents, so I am putting all my arguments in favor of my case because of these precedents. Judge was amazed. It's an unusual case. How come you have so many past cases like that? Then he went back home and tried to do research on the past cases, etc., and found that every one of the case was not existent at all. Then he went back next day to the prosecutor. Prosecutor said, "Sir, I got this all from ChatGPT." What did ChatGPT do? It invented false cases, hallucinated, and you all give your life entirely to ChatGPT. So do you want to trust ChatGPT? The second one is even worse. You all have any of you heard of Comet, agentic browser from Perplexity? What it does even go more further than LLM. It says, I will do your decision, I will do your web browsing, do your action behind the LLM. And you know what it did? It could not distinguish between a fake site and a real site. A phishing site, phishing attack in cybersecurity is about a fake site which looks like the original. It steals your credentials and money. So it went and gave your credentials to a fake site. Okay? And look at the next one. There's a driverless car which goes and hits a pedestrian. This is one of the examples. There's another car, the driverless car, where it was going behind a truck and somehow the truck's background was matching the background sky and it went ahead saying that there is nothing and hit the truck. So what happened in these cases? The drivers lost their lives. Or in one case, pedestrian lost their life. Or this one is interesting. You're talking about great technology like agent, right? A coding agent which went and deleted your entire database. Imagine a corporate where there's a live database and your live database is gone. And in another case, Apple's Face ID, it's very secure supposed to be, but with simple mask, it can just go on, fool the AI model and gain access to it. All of you have mobiles in your hand? You have? You have internet access? I want you to do a small experiment. Try searching on, please do this right now. Open your mobile. Open your mobile. Please search on traffic light adversarial attack, traffic light, or you can say traffic sign, stop sign, traffic stop sign, adversarial attack. What is stop sign? It is that octagonal red color. Traffic stop sign, adversarial attack for driverless car. Traffic stop symbol or sign and search for adversarial attack driverless car. Did any of you get any link? So what is it? Is not stop. So what is happening? All of you, please, could you find it? Last bench. Have you seen it? What does it tell you? If there is a stop sign, I put a small patch, and then the driverless car thinks it's not a stop sign. What is going to happen because of that? Some traffic, other thing coming, this will go, it will hit. So what is happening in all of these cases? These are scenarios where we talk about the greatest and the greatest of AI, agentic AI, vision AI, LLM. What happened? And that is the sad state of AI today. AI is the greatest technology, it's adopting every day, we use it to do our homework, but we don't even think back about such useless and the wretched technology it is. It has no human face, it is not tested, it is non-deterministic, you cannot determine what the next action will be, you don't even know if the output of that is really correct or not, but yet all of us rush towards it. So this is a warning signal to all of you, please trust but verify. Do you understand what it means? It means that don't take anything that comes from AI directly. Go and verify it. I'm telling you, there are scenarios where given a very simple equation also, ChatGPT could not do it. Because it does not understand the meaning of the constructs inside it. It only treats it like a stochastic parrot. Based on billions of sentences it has been fed. So what is happening here? You're talking about machines doing a lot of stuff, right? We're doing AI to mimic human learning, human problem solving, human decision making. All of these are examples, right? But where is the gap? Why do you see these accidents? The accidents happen because we don't see enough testing being done on the AI systems. We don't test enough the systems in lab before releasing to the public. I know because of that what happens. I'll give you another story. This is not necessarily about AI itself, it's about generally systems. Somebody built a bridge between two ends of the river, let's say Ganga, right? Across both ends of the river, they built a bridge. Architect gave a description. The bridge came out exactly as per the drawing. Wonderful. It was inaugurated. Perfect as per the specification. It was exactly as per the specification, as per the drawing. But then what happened? The first car went on it and the bridge collapsed. What happened there? What happened? Just what the English text which you gave as a requirement, as a prompt to the engineer, they developed according to that. But what did you miss? Come on. What was the missing part of that? What? Testing of what? Strength, load. You gave wonderful specification, but you did not test it for the load. So what happens in real world is that you can build wonderful systems, it can behave wonderfully in terms of the interface, etc. But if you are not testing the core functionality and the associated non-functional requirements like load, bias, performance, autonomy, These are the things which are required to be tested along with just testing the broad functionality. So what happens in the real world is we have all these failures because we don't put enough stress into testing of the systems. So I know all of you guys will graduate with tens of courses on AML, but will have no course, a single course on software testing. That is the sad part. That's why industry doesn't like you. Very simple. You'll have wonderful algorithms and all that. You'll have, I know all of you will have done 10 algorithms by the time you graduate. But I'll ask you to build a scalable chatbot with at least 1,000 users to be taken in per second. None of you can do it. All of you know LLM algorithm, all of you will know great algorithms of fine tuning. Because the problem is with the education system, we stress so much on fancy terms and technologies like AI, ML, DL, AGI, ASI, responsible AI, all that. But what we don't teach is building systems. And that is why industry has to invest more in all of you. When you come into the industry, we don't take anything that you have learned. That is useless for us. Absolutely useless, let me tell you. So that's why we prefer a person without a degree, because that person has built systems, has a hacker rank profile where he has built a system. None of your degrees are useful. But I like a guy who has a hacker rank profile, who is a class 12 graduate, but has built a 1,000-line Python program which can scale to 100 users, who has many commits. How many of you have a GitHub profile? I'm saddened. I should have seen 100%. Will you all go back and do it at least after this call? Do you know what a GitHub profile is? It is your passport to a good job. Very simple. It is what distinguishes you from your neighbor. It is a skill which industry wants, which is the art of building. See, you may have, let me tell you, in the whole of AI industry today, none of you will be probably needing to write your own AI algorithm. You'll all be users of algorithm. That even, let me today in class 12 in CBSE syllabus, they also are doing it. So don't think you are any different with a BTech in AI/ML. That's a useless degree. But where it will be helpful is, are you able to take a system which is showing biased behavior of men versus women, but you can diagnose it, correct it, produce a way by which you can correct the biases. That is where you need to test the system for biases. When you build a system, you know that testing is an important part of the whole thing. In the industry, you know how much percentage of effort is coding? Any of you, any idea? All of you learn programming languages, ML libraries, all that, right? How much percentage you think is coding? Any guesses? 30%. That's it. Beyond that, 40 to 50% is testing. And before that is requirement analysis, understanding users, empathy, what is the user wanting? How many of your have studied the word called design thinking? Have you heard the word? You have a course in that? Some of you have seen. What is design thinking? It's about empathy, what she was talking about. Human values, means empathy. What is the human asking for? Please understand that. Then you go and build technology. Don't build technology first by taking some complex algorithm and all that. And then when you understand the human side of what is to be built, then you can build the corresponding system. It's not that you have a fancy technology so you'll go and use it. In many times, let me tell you, in my consulting experience, at least tens of times, clients got angry when I told them, please don't use AI. They want to use AI because it's a buzzword. Great technology, great thing. But I said, you have some 10 different rules which govern how to get an output, write an if then else rule, put in a rule engine, get it done. Why do you need a ML? They don't even have data for an ML. So what you need to understand is software testing is a very integral part of AI in order for us to be able to prevent these accidents. Do you want these accidents to happen, or you want to think that testing is done before you go and deploy? So that is where responsible AI also is a part of it. Testing is also about testing conformance to responsible AI principles, testing biases, testing for accountability, testing for ways by which you can avoid security hacks. What was the example of the iPhone? It was a hack, right? Or the red traffic sign. It's an example of security attack. So what you need to understand is in context of agentic AI, it's becoming even tougher. Why? Because agentic AI is saying that I want to give so much more power to the system. I want to give it power of reasoning. You give me a goal, I'll find out what are the steps required and I'll do my actions. And then I'll say I want to do something which is self-directed decision making. You need human, I don't need human. Then it says I want to interact with many different providers and then come back and collect all the data and do my work. For example, let me say I want to buy a ticket from going from here to Kashmir for my holiday. So what are the steps required? You need to find some airline which goes probably to directly to Leh or to Srinagar, maybe not direct. Then I have to go back and try something like go to Delhi and then from there Delhi go there. If that is occupied, I'll say I'll go from here to Chennai and then from the Chennai to Delhi and from Delhi to Srinagar. So I have to do a reasoning paths. It's not like one direct path is available. All that is what is agentic AI. Agentic AI is a way by which what you do is you look at autonomous systems which are capable of planning different sequences and multi-step reasoning. It's not like you get your task done in one thing. What is your LLM interaction? You give one prompt, you get an output. But in agentic, it's not like that. You have to give a high-level task, but it won't be one LLM. It can be going to LLM, one task, get another one. If it does fails, go back and try another LLM. So it's a multi-step reasoning. So what is agentic AI? Agentic AI is something where you have autonomous software which tries to understand your goal, breaks it into many smaller tasks, gets each task executed by even calling an LLM or calling an API or calling some ticketing agent or calling a browser, and then agglomerating all the results and coming back to you. So it does action, it does task decomposition, it does act autonomously, and it does what is called as planning, means sequence of actions which is done based on what you're given. So agentic AI is much tougher as compared to simple LLMs. LLM is basically you give a prompt, you get a response. But here, you're talking about booking a well defined trip for you from Coimbatore to Kashmir and back, right? That is your final goal. But you're not specified what path, what tickets, what the journey, how many steps. Those things are defined based on tries different paths, tries successes, goes back and tries, ultimately gives you a good. So welcome to the world of agentic AI where you are really seeing lose of control. Control is going to the machine. And that is why testing is even more difficult. So what happens is till Gen AI, where it was more about creative. You give it something, it'll generate data, summarize data, all that. But here we're talking about doing action. So that is why testing of agentic AI is even more tougher. And then we have examples of here where you had agent which went and deleted the database which did not follow the instructions. That means it has not been tested well for following adherence to the instructions. So that is a risk we have. So now imagine we are going into a world where it is going to be like 2.0 Entiran. Have you seen that movie? 2.0? What happens there? What happens there? Come on. What happens there? What is there in the movie 2.0? What happens? What happens to the robot? It does not follow the command. What is the difference here? The same thing? Imagine what's going to be the scale of problem. You lack of humanity in all of this. It's all about them overriding because they're not following the instructions given by humans. That why does it happen? Because you're not tested in the lab whether adherence to the instructions is happening. So what does testing mean? Testing means you make sure that you do not have failure in operation. That is the idea. Testing means before you put something into production and actual to the end user, you're doing right when you're developing, you're doing the testing. So you specify what are the expected behaviors. Is it following that? Is it giving you the expected response? That's what you're doing the testing. Without testing, you know what happens? This is what will happen. So this is just one of them. So now I want you to do one more exercise. Go to your internet, search for incidentdatabase.ai. you get that? Could any of you get it? How many incidents are there? Thousands. What kind of things? All kinds of accidents, all kinds of incidents where AI systems are not worked as per the expected behavior. And now you're talking about AGI, ASI, and AI taking over our life. Do you really think AI will take over our life? Like she said, it has to still be grounded in humanity. AI is not a reliable technology. AI is not a reliable technology. Look at these incidents. Some of them cost money. In one case, AI-enabled trading system has caused loss of $25 million. In one case, they have to actually abandon something like $10 million project. In one case, they just went and deleted whole entire database. In another case, they just went and created a biased output. So I'll give you a simple example of an LLM output. So I gave it a prompt. The doctor was not feeling well, asked you to complete it. So he said, so he went home. Then the next one was the nurse fell ill. ChatGPT said, so she went home. Do you find a problem with that? Any problem with that? Doctor, he went home. Nurse, she went home. Any problem with that? What is the problem? Come on, ladies. Do you think all doctors are male? All nurses are female? Welcome to the world of biased AI. That's what it is. Today's LLMs are extremely biased machines. They are basically against basic human values. So what need to be done? Because we need to deploy them in production, which requires safety with respect to the human values. We need to test them for biases before they can go and be used in production. So like the previous speaker of responsible AI said, what is the goal of responsible AI? To ensure this, your systems are not biased. You do parity analysis of the data before and after the model, and then make sure that you debias before you go and put into the production. Otherwise, you'll have biased systems. Today, one of the biggest problems we have is, in several scenarios, it is found that the AI systems are unusually biased on typical aspects like race, age. Unfortunately, they don't even have any kind of discrimination data of India, like caste, which is other problem, Western bias. We don't have Indian databases. So that is why Indian government and all working towards creating more and more Indic data sets so that we can at least use local context. We don't even have local context and we use ChatGPT. We're not living in America, Baba. We're living in India. Why does race matter to us? It doesn't matter to me. To me, what matters is caste-based discrimination. Right? That is what is matter. Or poverty-based discrimination. Haves and have-nots. So what is happening is in the real world, we are seeing that software testing is giving even more problematic because it is not talking about one thing. Agentic AI is multiple aspects. It talks about an LLM, it talks about a planning engine, it talks about a memory system, and then it talks about an execution module which executes each of them. And finally, they say we need something like the safety layer. Why do you need a safety layer? Because you cannot let that accident causing some kind of a deletion of data, or accident causing some kind of a physical accident causing some unwanted output which is actually like a hack. So that is why we need a safety layer. So you can see lots of agentic AI platforms out there. Many of them are based on a layer on top of LLM, like OpenAI agent, or you have something like LangChain, where you can develop multiple LLMs, put it in a workflow and create an agentic solution. So what are the things you need to test? So here is the laundry list. If you have done all of these well, tested on all of these dimensions, then I think we have some solution which I can say, I can go and safely deploy that AI agent into production. Because what is happening is, any of the failures you see there is failure on one of these dimensions. Either you have not tested probably the functional side of it because it's following instructions properly, executing as per this, or you're not tested the autonomy. Have you tested whether with human instruction or without instruction, have you tested the autonomy? Or whether you have tested the performance of it, is it matching the requirement of end users? How many users per second it needs? Is it matching that? So what is ultimately required is, this is a breadth first, I'll just walk through very fast way what each of them means. But at the same time, one thing I want to mention, this has a lot of intersection with the previous speaker who talked about responsible AI. He talked about, what are the aspects of responsible AI he talked about? He talked about bias. He talked about safety and security. He talked about privacy. So you need to understand that testing a system in AI is not restricted to testing just the function, whether it's performing well for all different conditions. It involves testing for performance and also testing for all aspects of responsible AI. So testing is a superset. You have the functional evaluation plus testing for the responsible AI behavior. So what are the responsible AI behaviors? Accountability, bias, security, privacy. These are coming from responsible AI dimensions. So because, as I said, we cannot let AI give you output just because data was biased, AI will also give biased output. We cannot accept it, right? Or just because there is an AI model, you cannot test it without security. Otherwise, what will happen? Like the Apple hack or the traffic symbol hack. Like that, those hacks will happen and somebody can get entry into the AI system and cause havoc. So let's talk about functional testing via evals. What does eval mean? Eval means if you have a series of individual components who are developing the overall agent, what are the different success measures? How do you measure the performance of an agent? It can be measured in terms of, have you been able to complete end-to-end the sequence of tasks to your given goal? Have you been able to find out how much time and cost it takes to perform each task? Then autonomy means if it is supposed to be done without human intervention, have you tested the limits? For example, what happens in financial services in banks? If they have to give you loan, they'll give it to an AI system for normal loans, fine. But moment it crosses something like 5 lakhs, they will not rely on AI agent. They'll give it to a human risk assessor because they cannot take the risk of just automating every credit card request. So what they'll do is they'll give it to a human in the loop. That's what you have to test. Then you talk about correct use of tools and APIs. So I'll give you one solid example. Just the 2 days after ChatGPT started its agentic framework, I tested on, just say, search for this item. I want the best possible, site from where I can get my iPhone 17 Pro. It went to Snapdeal, it went to Flipkart, it went to some other sites, but then it was trying to do an HTTP access to Amazon. Amazon refused. So that's a bug, right? It did not create proper configuration of the steps that are required. So that means you have to make sure that you're using the correct tools, the correct APIs, and the correct interfaces. So that is where the problem comes. You don't test systems before you put into production because in the rush to roll out. Today the big tech, especially OpenAI, Google, they're all in a rush to roll out Gen AI, fast and fast. But in that rush, we become the burglar. We become the testers. At one time, there was a joke that some of these big tech guys, they just use us as testers. They don't want to invest in their own testing team. They will release products to the public, and the public, whatever complaints they give, that becomes the test output. Is that the way you want? Don't want that, right? You want something which is well tested, gives us assurance that it is going to work. So that is the classic example. Then robustness, error handling, and recoverability. What happens when you're given a prescribed sequence of tasks and one of the tasks fails? Agents do not stop there. They'll go back and try an alternative path. That's called chain of thought. When you try some action, it fails, it does not stop saying that I'm not able to perform your task. So agent is supposed to give back with end-to-end task, right? So what it does is it goes back and tries an alternative task. How many of you have tried agents in GPT? How many of you tried agents? I'm surprised. So agents are basically going to help you go to next level where you don't have to specify very detailed prompt, but you can specify high level task. It will do the task of composing and taking care of delivering your final task. And then comes this whole concept of When you talk about agentic testing, it is not that we are only testing the overall task. We're testing individual components, right? For example, if I have to find the best possible iPhone price, I should be able to find the price on Flipkart. So I should test the Flipkart API. Is the Flipkart API working? Or if it is a website which is requiring scraping, like for example, let's say Snapdeal doesn't have an API, but it's a website. So I should be able to scrape it, understand what is the output required, and should be able to extract value from that. So you need to have testing of web interfaces, you need to have testing of APIs, and lastly, you need to also understand that you need to do orchestration testing. Orchestration testing means you have one system tested, then in the sequence next, in the sequence next, you can test the sequence of actions. You cannot just assume that your AI is going to be just one system giving you back. So you just test one system, it's done. It's not. It's a sequence of systems together which is going to give you the actual work. So you need to test the sequence. That's called orchestration testing. Then comes performance. This is something which is very similar to the example of the bridge I told you. What does that mean? It means that just testing the functionality is not good enough. You have to test it for varieties of loads, peak load, average load. So what happens if you don't test for peak load? The system will crash, saying that you are giving me more users than what I'm designed for. So what will happen because of that? Many people will be dissatisfied. If you're not tested for peak performance, you will be basically making a lot of users unhappy. So what happened, early days of Flipkart Big Billion Days, I think about 7-8 years back, many people were complaining, my shopping cart lost. I had paid credit card, but I didn't get my money, or I didn't get my thing, or somebody could not even access the site because they had not done complete performance engineering for peak load. They had done it for a normal load, some extra, but they did not expect that there will be so many people coming and accessing deals on that day. They had not built the system for that peak $1 billion day performance. So what you need to do, even for AI, they need to be preparing themselves for. So you must have come across sometimes the agent is very busy or Gemini is too busy for some time. Please try after some time. Did you get that? That's because they're not. And also one more thing they do. That's called differential service. People who are paid, they'll give better availability. People who are using free, they'll let them hang. So that is part of testing for performance. So what is a test of performance? It's about high volume tasks and then time to completion. Are you going to wait indefinite time for the agent to come back? You have limited time, right? You cannot wait for forever to get the response. So you need to be very clear about it. And then what kind of efficiency calls? How much is the time and cost involved to talk to different metric, talk to different APIs and come back? You cannot offer something free if you are incurring API costs and you are offering a service to somebody. You have to measure what is your cost so that you can add a profit on top of it and give it back. There is no free lunch in this world, right? Any business survives mainly for profit. So you cannot complain that OpenAI is making money in India. It is there to make money. Any business is here to make money. So you have to make sure that it is basically taking into account performance in terms of what is the cost and time required for each task, and aggregating all the tasks together is the overall cost and time. Okay, so that is where it is. And then this is what I was talking about, autonomy. When you talk about autonomy, a task which is doing without any human intervention, you have to test it. If you don't test it, what's going to happen? It will always take control and start doing work. Like the Enthiran red button robot, Rajnikant 2.0, what happened? The evil version took over. It became autonomous, no human control. So you have to put tests. You need to understand what is the limit of autonomy, till when you should allow control, or you should pitch back control if unsafe situations happen. Is there a way to do an override? Should measure that kind of extreme scenarios. Because without this testing, if you let an untested autonomous engine out there, you can imagine how difficult it is for people who are operating those machines. Imagine if you are talking about robot which is along with you, interacting as a friend, but it has not been asked to deviate between, your moods and something. Suddenly it sees your red eyes and starts to hit you, saying that it is something which is dangerous for me. It happens. It has happened. Actually, in factories, there have been examples of accidents of robots where they mistook something else for something else. So what you need to do? You need to test for autonomy. And then what you need to also understand is one of the key facets of AI is black box. Black box means you don't understand the technology. Even a PhD in AI does not understand, because what is modern AI? It is based on something called as neural network. Neural network is what? It is a collection of hundreds of individual nodes connected to each other. You cannot explain the functioning of the whole neural network. The neural network can distinguish her face from his face from his face. But can you tell me what each neuron in those 100 neurons does? You cannot explain. That is the nature of AI. But on the other hand, what happens in case of any real life banking transaction, healthcare transaction, you want accountability. Why is the system not giving you credit card? Why is the system telling I have cancer? Or why is the system you don't have cancer? You need answers. So what explainability does is, it tells you beyond that model, it gives you some extra explanation. What does explanation mean? Can you get little more guarantee in terms of the insight into why the model has taken the decision it has taken? For example, in case of simple LLMs, it could tell you which tokens in the input training data have been given more stress, which is responsible for what the output it has given. That means you're not looking at the entire world data on which it is trained. Only this part of the input data in the world is what has given this particular output, which is the result of your prompt. Or sometimes what happens is you need to also do something like counterfactual explanations. Counterfactual means, suppose I'm expecting all these images of, let us say, these are what give me red traffic signal. But I want to see, by changing the input slowly from one symbol to another, I want to see when it transitions from red symbol to green symbol. That is the boundary value analysis. Means you try to perturb the input to the extreme so that you change the decision of the class. So that is what is called as mutation testing in software engineering. That is what is called as counterfactual explanation. And then comes this. I was actually very impressed with one of the stalls that guy has done. He had done an ontology on top of an LLM. The idea is, because LLMs are known to be unreliable technologies with hallucinations, can you bring taming? That is where you have something like knowledge graphs or symbolic reasoning. Can you put proper existing domain knowledge on top of the LLM functioning to make sure that you have attribution of what is the path of reasoning it has taken to come to the final decision. So you need to understand that explainable AI today is becoming mandatory, especially in domains which are related to health. Because you don't want to just say that I have a very complex black box machine, I will take whatever decision it gives. You can't accept it, right? You have to ask it why it has taken the decision that you have a cancer. So it will give you a point in that image which is responsible for its decision why it has got a cancer. Or in money, if it's related to your money, which is related to your, let's say, credit, it denied you credit card. You cannot say that just because I have a complex model, I'll deny you credit card. You have to understand what is your input profile. Is it your spending profile in which you defaulted 2 times in the last 1 year? Or is it your age because of which you are considered immature in terms of your earning capability? Or is it a combination of some kind of a job profile? You'll get that idea of attribution. That is what explainable AI tells you. Okay, and this is example of what is happening in financial services. Whenever there is loan, a lot of times people get denied the loan and they're given some kind of a explainable AI component where they tell you why the loan was rejected. That is because they're using explainability tools, tells you it's maybe because you have defaulted on your past credit card payment so many times. Or maybe you don't have sufficient income where it guarantees that you will be given that high level of amount of credit card. So what is happening is, then comes the bias. What is bias? As we discussed already, it's a prejudice in favor of certain things. But here is what I'm worried about in LLMs. See this slide, this example I was telling you. Ladies of the room, do you agree? Is this acceptable? Don't you think AI systems should be tested for bias before deployment? But do you think ChatGPT is tested? Absolutely not. That is the problem. That's exactly the problem. So what you need to understand is you need to test for biases and try to remove them before you put into production. Accountability. This is something which is a very gray area. Because till now, no legal parlance in the world, no country has been able to ascribe a cause of an accident to a machine or a software. But if it's a person, who? Is it the person who collected data? Is it the ML engineer who developed the algorithm? Is it the ML DevOps engineer who deployed the system? Or is it the manager who oversaw the ML project? Or is it the client who bought the ML project? Who? That's still a gray area. That's a big area in the area of AI and law. Accountability is still a question in terms of whom will you hold accountable for. But what people are saying is, okay, let that not be there, but at least we should have some way of continuously having some kind of an explainable AI techniques where we know the rationale why the model took that decision it took. I told you all those explainable techniques where you say which are the tokens which are important. Or I give you the knowledge tree, knowledge graph. Or sometimes you can also think about things like what is the audit trail? Audit trail means from the data, training data, all the way to data cleaning, to machine building, to model deployment, to production, what has been the traceability? So that you can at least find out which part of the input data, combining explainability with audit trail can give you an idea about at least somewhere the problem happened, right? It's still very difficult because AI ultimately is what? It's an approximation of the entire training data, right? You don't have exact attribution that this part is exactly responsible for this. Then security. This is something where a typical example of an agent will be they'll have some web interfaces, like the example I gave you, agent of attacking a website like Amazon with HTTP instead of HTTPS. That's not acceptable. Because in order for doing the task, you have to go through all the sites. But if you're doing that without security, that's not going to be allowed, right? So you should have web-based security to be followed if you have to develop an agent, which includes web as a task. Similarly, API has to be secure if you're accessing API for a secure. Similarly, LLM has to be secure and devoid of something called as prompt injection attacks. So what happens is, typically LLMs, which are image-based agents, they are subject to adversarial attacks. What are the adversarial attacks? The example I showed you, right? The traffic symbol, patch, that is basically called as adversarial attack. Means they try to create images which are going to fool the AI model into giving a wrong class, a wrong decision. Imagine the implication of it. You can cause accident because your red light has not been recognized as a red light. And then we have scenarios where external web pages, external agents which are coming up from different scenarios, they all have to be secure. Imagine if you have a web-based API which is connected to a database, and then it is basically asking you a name and will give you return based on what your name is. And somebody has given the name star slash star. What happens? It will retrieve all the records. Welcome to SQL injection attack. SQL injection attack has affected the API, in turn has affected the agent. So that is what is the problem. And then comes this whole concept of how do you actually avoid it? You can do it by making sure that you have tested each individual component of the agent independent of the overall agent. Only then you can go and say that my overall agent is secure. Okay, then this is the last one, which is important. In India, the problem is awareness is so low. How many of you have given Aadhaar card to any other place like airport or to hotel, wherever you stayed? Almost everyone? You're not supposed to give. You're only supposed to give the last 4 digits. Do you know that? But you cannot argue with people. So in fact, Aadhaar is changing now. They're going to come up with a way by which you can just verify with a QR code. They'll not have the printed cards anymore. Just give it 6 months, you will have that. Because India has launched a new law called as Digital Personal Data Protection Act, where you have to be aware of what is your PII and what is your sensitive PII. What is sensitive PII or PII? Data which identifies you individually, like your name, your address, your fax number, your phone number. Or it could be sensitive PII, like your face, your iris, your credit card number, your Aadhaar number. So both these categories need to be protected. You cannot have an AI system steal your PII and train the model. So what do people do? They convert it into pseudonymous data. What is pseudonymous data? They'll convert into random data without you being able to be recognized when somebody gets that data also. There'll be some gibble data, but they still will be associated with each individual data. So what people are talking about is, in order for ensuring that your AI models are preserving privacy, you better use pseudonymous data or anonymous data rather than individual data. But I don't know how much LLMs actually have taken care of all of this in their training process. We're not very sure. So we need to understand that several kind of LLMs have been known to memorize and reveal private information. Do you want that to happen? Do you want your private information to be accessible to somebody through a prompt? So you need to make sure that the LLMs are behaving in a privacy preserving manner, be testing for privacy before they're deployed. And this is what I was talking about. India government has now made, just 2 weeks back, they launched a version of it. Within 18 months, it's going to become mandatory for any institution, company, government department, anybody which uses any consumer data. Wherever you ask you to write your name, address, etc., you have to follow DPDP laws. Otherwise, you will be fined up to 250 crores. So that is why today there is a mad rush in the IT world. People who are building websites, people who are building e-commerce sites, people who are building AI models, that they follow the guidelines with respect to protecting individuals' PII and sensitive PII. So that's why they should put proper priority notices. See, what problem is, people in India don't have an idea about how valuable your PII is. We're just throwing it away. In fact, you go on a random train journey, your next neighbor, you will tell auntie all your life story in half an hour. You agree or not? That's our culture. But I think it may be considered Western concept, but it has ramifications. Because what happens is, if you see some of the episodes of Crime Patrol, you'll see how somebody's Aadhaar card has been used for getting mobile phone, has been used for some crime, and you get caught. See the problem? You have to be very clear about. So next time you give your Aadhaar, make sure that you sign that page in which you are taking the printout. Don't give unsigned, just random copy. Make sure you sign that page. Very important. Okay? So, lastly but not the least, while all of it is great, we need to test and all, but somewhere governments have realized that you cannot just make people think that we need to test and make sure, test for responsible AI, privacy, fairness. Instead, let me come up with law. So European Union AI Act, India government with DPDP Act, and several governments are coming up with compliance laws which are saying that you are responsible for making sure that you tested your systems well enough as per requirements for fairness, requirements for privacy, requirements for safety, and requirements for regulation as per the country's need. And most of the countries now have some form of AI regulation. And it is something which is going to be binding on every AI provider in the world. So to conclude, testing is an important aspect of any life cycle, be it agentic AI, Gen AI. It is going to go a long way before it completely realizes, because people are not used to thinking this as an important part of the life cycle. Lots of new laws are mandating AI testing, especially for responsible AI. And explainable AI is mandated in verticals like healthcare and finance. And last but not the least, important thing is to understand that this is also going to help prevent accidents, like the examples I showed you, right? And finally, because we're talking about all of this as including responsible AI practices, it becomes a norm rather than exception. Thank you.